Good morning, Small Gains family. How did you sleep last night? How has your sleep been this year so far, or this week? Answer me that. I have never been good at sleeping. I actually struggled so much as a kid to get up early for school, and I would never be able to get to sleep during the night. And I remember anytime I had like sleepovers with friends, everyone would just seem to fall asleep so quickly, and I never ever could. And then fast forward to when I left school and I started touring in bands, I would often get in from a show at like 4 a.m. And then I worked in an Apple store that was about a 50-minute commute from where I lived. And I would get in from a show at 4 a.m. I would have driven back from like Glasgow or somewhere silly like that. And then I would get up at like 5:30, get ready and set off at 6. So I would have about an hour of sleep, but probably not even that. And those days didn't feel fun, but I always actually felt fine eventually. And doing things like that when I was 18 or 19, I would be really, really tired, but I would do a full work day. I would get home at 4 and I would be fine. I wouldn't just completely crash. I wouldn't necessarily suffer that much at work. And when I was collating all my thoughts for this episode, what I realized was I didn't start suffering from putting myself through terrible sleep until I was in like my mid to late 20s. And when I was a touring musician, I would obviously be exhausted on tour all the time. The constant travel, the process of sitting around, loading all your gear in, sound checks, sell merch without a crew. It was a really knackering full day every day that would pretty much go 10 or 11 a.m. till 3 or 4 a.m. But sometimes days would be longer depending on the travel time or if it would be a festival. But the thing about touring is you could crash out in a hotel room at 4 in the morning and some days you wouldn't have to be up until 11 or 12, again, depending on the drive. So because I was never having to get up stupidly early unless there was an early drive, I actually didn't find that challenging. But then when I started to get to like 25, 26, I noticed in my home life when I wasn't on tour, if I was working part-time jobs or when I was self-employed, I would struggle to get up early no matter what I did. And I just couldn't get into any sort of routine. And that often felt really stressful, especially when I felt like I was doing everything I could. Sleep just felt impossible. And obviously, as I went through my ADHD diagnosis and read a lot, I learned a lot about how sleep affects people that are neurodivergent. And as someone that was always medicated for anxiety and depression, I always thought it was that. Maybe it was a bit of both. There are so many different reasons why we might struggle with sleep. But often what I actually feel in myself about my sleep and what I talk to with all my one-to-one people that I coach about their sleep is that often we can just feel so overstimulated or overwhelmed or really highly strung from a busy or stressful day of work that we feel like we need a good amount of time to actually wind down at the end of the day. And often that's coming at a cost of our sleep, at a cost of our training recovery. And then we get up the next day and do it all again and we still feel overwhelmed and stressed and overstimulated. And what can happen then is when we realize that we're tired all the time, we're fatigued all the time, we're stressed, overwhelmed, overstimulated all the time, we start looking for a lot more material solutions to these issues. And if we identify sleep as one of those issues, we can start to think, I need to do this to get more sleep. I need to buy this supplement. I need to do this very lengthy wind down routine and morning routine and evening routine. And I need to drink this very expensive mushroom sleep aid. And you might like doing all that. And if you do, it's absolutely fine. But really, most of the time, all we actually need to do when it comes to taking ownership of managing our sleep hygiene is we just need to parent ourselves a little bit more and go to bed a little bit earlier. Or a lot earlier in some people's cases. So as usual, let's dive in a little bit to sleep hygiene. Now, this is a short episode, so I'm not going to do the whole long intro, but if you've not listened to this before, welcome to the Small Gains podcast. This is an inclusive strength and running podcast where we talk about all things training and recovery from a multifaceted, nuanced approach. This is a very little wholesome corner of the fitness industry. And if you're just finding me for the first time today, I'm buzzing to have you here. Welcome, and I hope you like it. So diving in with a really, really harsh truth that none of us want to hear because it's not fun. We just need to go to sleep earlier. We all do. There's no amount of supplements, meditations, nightly routines, morning routines that are going to make up for us accruing a ton of sleep debt. When we're tired and we're in good health, And by good health, I mean we have all our health markers. We're not necessarily experiencing something that might give us chronic fatigue. There is only one solution to the problem of sleep debt, and it's to sleep. And we can't catch up on sleep. So if you have loads of late nights during the week, you will be tired by the weekend, but you can't catch up on that sleep debt. Yes, you can sleep more, but you're not making up for anything. The sleep debt has already been accrued. And I talk so much about sleep with the people that I coach. And often when I ask my coaching team these 3 questions, that's when they realize they're not actually sleeping as much as they think they are. So those questions are, what time do you go to bed? What time do you actually fall asleep? And what time does that first alarm go off that you always hit snooze on? If you go to bed at 11 p.m. with the view that you're going to get up at 7 a.m., that's when your first alarm goes off. That seems perfectly reasonable. That's an 8-hour gap. But if you're actually getting in bed at 11, trying to sleep, but not sleeping till 12, and then that first alarm goes off at 7, you're getting less than 7 hours sleep. If you go to bed at 10 with the intention of getting up at 6, but you end up scrolling on your phone, or you actually just can't sleep until midnight, again, you're getting less than 6 hours sleep. And what happens is often we start to overlook these little factors either end. Because even if you press snooze, you've already been woken up when that first alarm goes off. And when we overlook all of this, that's when we start to think, well, I need a better mattress, I need a weighted blanket, I need earplugs, I need a sleep mask, I need a wind machine, I need white noise, I need to take a mushroom supplement, I need to take a sleeping pill. And you know what? All of those things are valid if they help you, but they aren't actually getting rid of the fact that you've got sleep debt and you need to sleep more. So let me promise you from experience of trying all sorts, that no amount of smart sleep tracking apps, wearables, cold water showers, massage guns, acupuncture mats, no amount of that stuff is ever going to erase sleep debt if you've got a ton of it. All we need to do is work backwards and prioritize our sleep. And that might not always be able to happen, and that's okay. If it doesn't, we just own it, because we're not always going to have perfect sleep. Just like we're not always going to have perfect workouts, perfect nutrition, and a perfect routine. On average, the evidence shows that we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. For me, I've definitely learned over the years that 8 hours is pretty much spot on. If I have any less than that, I genuinely just don't feel my best. My training doesn't feel as good, and my mental well-being definitely doesn't feel as good, and my body doesn't feel as good either. My usual routine during the week, if I'm not socializing or I don't have any plans or I'm not going to a gig, is be in bed by 9 o'clock. Ideally be falling asleep by 10, then get up as soon as that first alarm goes off at 6 a.m. It takes me a while to fall asleep, so I always have to give myself at least an hour. And the weeks where that happens, my sleep is awesome and I feel amazing. Does that happen every day? Absolutely not. But if I'm not socializing, I don't have plans, that's what I aim for. And there is often times when I don't manage to get in bed until 9:30. And at that point, if I've got the time to set my alarm slightly later, to try and get that 8 hours, I will. But sometimes I won't. And that's okay. I'm just doing my best. And then on to doing our best and talking about socializing. If I socialize during a normal work week or even a weekend, I don't beat myself up for having suboptimal sleep. Now, obviously, sleep has been something I've had to really prioritize in my marathon prep. But when I'm not prepping for something like this, I really cherish all the time I get to spend with my people. Anytime I get to go to a show, have drinks with friends, get to go on nights out, because I have friends all over the place. I don't have a big group of local friends. So that time is really important and valuable to me. And is that worth sacrificing my sleep for and feeling a bit crap? Yeah, 100% every time. Life is too short. So whilst I am someone that really does care about my sleep and I put it higher than a lot of things in my life, when it comes to socializing with my people, because that means a lot to me, I do compromise for it. Now, I'm saying this from a point of view that because I've got this marathon coming up, I've actually cancelled all my plans for the next 2 weekends. And the reason I did it was because my body didn't feel good. Yes, those plans were going to be fun, but I did have to make a decision. And I actually decided to prioritize my sleep. And that's maybe the first time I've prioritized sleep over some fun social stuff. But it was for something that I'm so passionate about and want to get done. So when I weighed it up, it made absolute sense. But ideally for me, my kind of blanket rule and mindset towards prioritizing my sleep is if I'm not out doing something, my bedtime is 9, I try and fall asleep by 10, I get up at 6 when that first alarm goes off. That's what we do when we're not doing something else. And if we are doing something else and my sleep suffers, I own it and I just get on with it because that's what I've chosen. So ideally, if you're struggling with your sleep and you want to set a little bit of a boundary and tighten up your actual cut-off times with getting in bed and falling asleep and getting up, if you're just following the rule that if you're not out socializing, you have a set bedtime and a set sleep time, then you'll be in a really good spot. In an ideal world, we would all go to sleep at exactly the same time and all wake up at exactly the same time. And we would have absolutely perfect circadian rhythms and we would all get really good quality sleep. But we then probably wouldn't be living our best life in any possible way. So let's throw that out the window immediately. And then the second quick thing that I want to talk about today is how sleep affects our recovery from our training. Because if we're showing up to all our gym sessions and all our run sessions tired, you're constantly getting little niggles or aches and pains, and you're not looking after your sleep as a priority, then you absolutely need to be. Sleep isn't going to necessarily be the sole factor of that, but it could be a really, really big one. And as I just said earlier, the biggest thing I have prioritized in the whole of my marathon prep isn't actually the amount of runs I'm doing, it's my sleep and making sure I get as close to what feels good for me as possible. And when it's been off, even by half an hour or so, I have really noticed it. So as always, I do want to give you a little something to go away and do. This is something that I do with a lot of my clients. And as your life changes, as your environment changes, you might have to do this multiple times. So if you've got a pen and paper handy, you've got a journal handy, you've got your phone handy, write down these prompts. If you're out for a run or you're in the gym right now, maybe just think about it. But ask yourself, what time do you get in bed? What time do you actually fall asleep? And then what time does that first alarm go off? Then I want you to work backwards. If your first alarm goes off at 7 a.m., what time does that mean you need to fall asleep at? If you want 8 hours of sleep, that means you need to be sleeping by 11. If you need to be asleep by 11, what time do you need to be in bed by? For me, that would be 10. If you can fall asleep easily, you might be able to get in bed at 11:15. And when you've decided what time you need to be in bed by, what time does that mean you need to have finished your last meal of the day or finish your training session and be home and showered by? I'm going to put these questions as prompts in the show notes if anybody wants to revisit them later. But this is how we very easily work backwards to make a very simple sleep habit that we can uphold most of the time when we don't have other things going on. And if you don't have a conventional job, if you work in hospitality or if you work shifts, so you're working at antisocial hours, this is still the same. You still need to work backwards in the same way. You just might be doing it at a different time of day. Then my final tip to see the episode out on is just keep trying with it. It might take a few months for you to realize that you need 9 hours, not 8, or that you need 7.5 hours and you feel okay, but 8.5 is normally a bit better. Keep persevering with it. You can't fix your sleep in a month. It took me a good few years to learn how my body felt in the environment that I'm in with the lifestyle that I have on the amount of sleep that I was getting and work out what felt good for me. We constantly have to work on our sleep hygiene, just like we have to work on our food relationship and our body image. We can't fix it in one go. And we'll always have to rejig it based on how our life pans out and if we have any changes. So bottom line, with our sleep, we can't fix it once forever, but we can continue to prioritize it. And it's probably the one thing that we overlook when it comes to our physical and mental well-being, our training and our recovery and our energy levels throughout the day. You just probably need to go to sleep earlier. It's not the thing that we want to hear, but it is the thing that's probably going to help. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while or it's your first time and you haven't given it a rating or dropped a comment or subscribed to it wherever you're listening to it from, I would appreciate that so much so I can reach all the lovely LGBTQ alternative people that are into strength and running and well-being. My next round of my hybrid strength and run program, Fast and Ferocious, is going to start in a few weeks. So I'm opening the doors again soon for anyone that might want to join to take their strength and running to the next level. And if you've got this far in the podcast, I know that you're probably a very good flavour of person that will fit in with my lot and that we will get on. So if you're interested in joining the next intake, I'll leave a link in the show notes, but you can just literally reach out to me on Instagram or via email, whatever works for you. So keep chasing the small gains and get your sleep in. See you in a bit.